and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a diabetes video that I think is actually going to change your life. It's really helped me in my diabetes management and blood sugar control over the last while, and it's actually allowed me to eat foods that are fatty foods that I want to treat myself with, and I was always afraid to because I'd get super high blood sugars and it just wouldn't be worth it. I'm not a doctor, this is just a tip that I found that works for me, and I've seen a lot of people online that it actually works for as well, and I'm just sharing that with anyone who hasn't seen it if they want to give it a go or talk to their diabetes team about it. But it might make your life easier, and I honestly wish that I found out like way before so I could enjoy things guilt-free without having to deal with high blood sugars. So yeah, let's get straight into the video. So this video is about controlling your blood sugars when you want to have a high carb, high fat meal, such as a pizza. What happens to me is that I eat the pizza, I can manage my blood sugar a bit, and then the fat breaks down and it goes crazy high. And this is probably what people may have experienced. You know, you eat a fatty food and then a few hours later you have this massively high blood sugar that you have to deal with. So this is how to help with that. This is going to be a two-part video. First, I'm going to show you how I used to manage insulin with high fat food like this pizza, and then in the part two I'm going to show you the new way to do it with this fat bolus split, and I hope that helps people who are there. Let's get started on part one. Okay, so to begin part one, I have my gluten-free margarita pizza here from Asda, and again, this is part one, so this is what I used to do with my insulin regime for a meal like this. And then again in part two I'm going to show you the new method that will really help control your blood sugars. So in terms of carb counting, the pizza says that it has 31 grams of carbohydrate in 100 grams. So I'll put some calculations up here on the screen, and it will basically be looking at the total weight of the pizza, which is 380 grams, and we know that there's 31 grams of carbs in every 100 grams of pizza. So this means we go 31 divided by 100, and that will give us something like 0.31, and then we go 0.31 multiplied by the total weight of the pizza, which is 380. That will give us 117.8, and then I do my carb ratio 1 unit of insulin to 10 grams of carbs, so dividing 117.8 by 10 is then 11.78, which I round up then to 12 units. So before I take any insulin after the pizza's cooked, obviously I'm going to check my bloods on my sensor, and they are 8.1, so I'm really happy with that. And I'm going to put my pizza in the oven. When it comes out, I'm going to take my 12 units like I showed you there, and then we will catch up on my blood sugars later and see how they're going. And also, I mentioned that I'd seen this kind of online, and I've been doing some research as well about how to control your blood sugar with a high fat meal, but I actually read some scientific papers first, and I'll put the link down below if anyone's interested, where there were some scientific studies done on this method, and they actually use pizza as the example to help control blood sugars with high fat meals. So that's what I read, and I thought it was really interesting, and I decided to see how I could work it for myself using what they described in the paper. So if anyone wants to check that out, I'll put the link down below, but it was a really good read and really helped explain some of the concept here as well. Okay, so my pizza is cooked and it looks really good. And like I said, I'm going to take the amount of insulin just to cover the pizza, which will be 12 units. So we'll track my blood sugar, but I think it will either go low or stay normalish, and then there'll be a huge spike later on. And I'll show you that. So then that will really show in part two when you do the fat split bolus how it helps control your blood sugar. But I'm going to go eat my pizza.
2 hours later.
Okay, so the time is about 2 hours later after I've had the pizza. And you can see that the amount of insulin that I took for the pizza has made me drop low to 3.7. And this is what I expected. I thought that I would either stay in a normal range or I would drop. And then I'm expecting to have a massive high either in an hour or two from now or throughout the night. So I will treat this hypo, and then I will show you guys either in a few hours or in the morning how my blood sugar was. But I need to go get some sugar now for this. So it's really annoying that taking the right amount of carbs that the pizza says, because it's a fat breakdown. The insulin works too quickly, makes the blood sugar drop, and then the fat is released later on, making the blood sugar spike. So I'll catch up with you guys in a bit. Just so you guys are updated on the timelines, that one there is when just before I had the pizza, I was 8.1. and I just checked there to make sure, and I'm 3.7. So let's check it again in a few hours.
The next day.
Okay, hello. Ooh. Hello, it is the next morning, and yes, I am wearing a blanket basically, but I will put a picture here of my blood sugars somewhere on the screen, and you will see that exactly what I thought would happen happened. I had that low, treated that, went to like 6.4 or something, and went to bed, and then throughout the night had a massive spike up to like 17, and yeah, that was really bad. So that's what I was saying, that's when you carb count for the pizza, inject the amount of insulin as per the carb count, which was 12 units. The insulin starts to work, drops the blood sugar, and you either stay in range or go low, which is what happened to me, and then the fat breaks down later on and you have this huge spike. So I want to get rid of that completely, and I'm sure you do too. So in part 2 now, I'm going to go and talk about how you can actually prevent this completely, and honestly the results are amazing. So I think that this tip will really change your life, and I'm sorry if anyone's had really high blood sugars and didn't know about this. I hope this method really helps you. So I've taken some insulin to bring down that really high spike, and I'm not going to do that again, because in part 2 we're going to talk about how you can prevent this completely. We're going to work on our insulin regime and prevent that huge spike and have good blood sugar control and be able to eat the pizza. So let's get straight into part 2, and I think you're really going to enjoy this, and it's going to change your life. So here is the pizza that I'm going to be using. I'm going to use the same for both videos. Free from gluten-free and wheat-free margherita pizza. Let's take a look at the carbohydrates. So let's get our calculator out. We said in 100 grams of pizza there's 31 grams of carbs, so we do 31, divide that by 100, so then we know in every 1 gram of carbs is 0.31. The whole pizza weighs 380, so multiplied by 380 is 117.8. And I know that I do a 1-to-1 ratio for my insulin. So that means every 1 unit of insulin is 10 grams of carbohydrate. So in this case, I will be taking 11.7 grams of carbohydrate for the pizza, which I will round to 12. Now, we know that I'm going to be taking 12 units for just the pizza without any adjustments. But when it is a really high fat meal, what you have to do is account for that. So usually you add an extra 30 to 40%. So we know it's going to be 12 units. Multiply that. I'll do 30 in this case today. I'll try it with that. It's 3.6. So the whole pizza will be 15.6 units of insulin. If I wanted to do it with 40% adjustment, so I would say 12 for just the pizza, multiplied by 0.40, 4.8 plus the 12, so 16.8 units of insulin is what I need to take to cover this high fat meal. So whether I take 15.5 units or 16.5 units, it won't make too much difference. You know, it might take a while using this method to see what suits you more, what the type of food is, you know, the fat content, or maybe just what your blood sugar is. Like if my blood sugar is more high, I might find I want to do the 40% rather than the 30. But what's really important with these kind of foods is that, and when you're doing, what's really important when you're doing the split between the two is that you leave a gap. So you don't take 15 units or 16 units, whatever you're going to take. You don't take that all together. You'll see in the previous part that when I take all of these units of insulin together, I would go low. So that's what would happen. So you don't want to take everything together. You want to do your split. So they say 2 hours to 2.5 hours. I've been doing 2 hours, but it kind of depends. So you'll figure it out yourself. You know, you might need to leave it 2.5 because you go higher later on, or you might find that you're already going high, you know, after an hour and a half or 2 hours, but usually 2 to 2.5 hours is what the study has been saying. Basically, what I calculated there, I'm just going to split it in two, and I'm going to take the first half when I eat this pizza, and I'll show you that, and I'm going to take the second half later on so that I don't go low and that fat release that happens later on is controlled by the units of insulin that I'm taking later on. So to figure out whether I'm going to take 30 or 40%, I'm going to check my bloods. I'm going to use my sensor that's here, and it was 5.5 if it focuses on there. I'm just going to be doubly sure and check with this. So I'm going to test my blood sugar here. We'll see what that is. So sensor says 5.5 and this says 5.7. So perfect. So I'm already going to go with the 30% split. I need to point out something that has never happened to me before is that I took the pizza out of the packet and it's already broken into loads of pieces, which is so sad. Like, it doesn't really matter, but this has never happened to me before. That's really sad, but I guess it's already pre-cut. Kind of helps me when it's cooked. Okay, so I'm gonna do 30%, so that'll be 15.6 units of insulin. I have a half pen, so I'm gonna use that, and it'll be 15.5 units of insulin is what I can take. But like I said, you don't want to do this all together, so you want to split the dose. So I'm going to just divide it by 2, 7.75. So I guess I will do, it's almost 8, so I'm going to do 8 and 8. So for the first, when I sit down with my pizza and it's cooked, I'm going to take 8 units, and then I'm going to wait 2 hours or 2.5 hours. I'll probably check the blood sugars and see if it's starting to rise around then, and do the second 8. So this is the first part of the split. Okay, so the pizza is just on. It's there. It was really incredibly difficult to put into the oven because it's broken and I don't have a pizza tray. So I hope I don't drop any when I get it out, because that will really mess up the video. But anyway, gotta leave it for 12 minutes and catch up then. So, oh my god, my last scan was at 12 o'clock. That's so bad. That's not true. Oh yeah, because I've been using my actual sensor, so that's why. Anyway, so I'm going to scan my arm before the pizza. Yes, 4.9. So that's really good. But what I want to do is we want to watch after I have the pizza and I wait 2 hours what my blood sugar is then. And then after I take that second split of insulin, what it is then and how we can control that graph. I think you will see when I do the pizza that I don't do the split dose. You will see how crazy that graph is going to get. So we're going to follow this graph very closely. Okay, like I explained, the pizza, before I put it in the oven, the pizza was falling apart, but it looks so good. Oh, I really got the right crispiness of it. I don't really mind that it's in pieces because it makes it easier to eat. So here is the pizza. Yeah, I'm gonna have it with mayonnaise. Is that controversial? I don't know. But I will take the first set of the 2 insulin doses. So like I said, I have a half pen. This is it here. I'm going to test it. Tested it there and it was coming out fine. So like I said, the first dose will be 8 units. First dose will be 8 units of insulin. I'm going to take it. What I normally do is shout at Google to set me a timer, because honestly you're not going to remember if you don't set a timer that you need to do a second dose. So hey Google, set a timer for 2 hours.
Sure, 2 hours, and we're starting now.
I'm going to take my first dose. So here, stomach. First 8 units starting now, and enjoy my pizza, and then I will come back in 2 hours and take the second dose of 8 units, and I will check the blood sugar then too.
2 hours later.
Hello, so it is 2 hours and maybe 15 minutes later. The timer went off in the other room so I didn't hear it, but I just found out now that it's gone off, and I'm about to check my sensor. So 9.1, really good. We'll look at that on the graph now too. So you saw that I just took it with the sensor. I'm going to scan my arm with my phone now. Yeah, and it is basically what it said, 10 or 9 and the arrow going up. So it's time to take the second amount of my dose, which is another 8 units that I'll show you now. But yeah, looking at the graph, we stayed We went down a bit after I took it and we stayed well within the green, but now that it's that 2 hours later, the blood sugar is starting to rise because the fat is breaking down. So this is when you need to go with the second dose. It is time for the second part. So I've done really well with the first half of the split. Now it's time for the other 8 units. So just getting my pen, testing it. Yeah, it's coming out perfect there. So now I'm going to do it the other side this time. Inject 8 units now. This is the second half of the split, so 8 there. So now we have taken the full 16 units for the pizza, and I will leave that for another while. That should be fine, but we will check it out on the graph and see how things go.
Later.
Hey, so it's really late, I think like 12:15 or something. I'm gonna check after the pizza. So remember, I took my first dose earlier and then I left it for 2 hours, checked it again, took my second dose. So now I've done all that and I'm gonna check it now and see if it worked. So sensor says 5.8, so that's perfect. That's just for accuracy check on the monitor. And the monitor, so the monitor says 6.1, so that's perfect. Like, that just shows you how doing that split, adding in the extra percentage for the carbs and for the fat, that extra 30 to 40% has really helped control it. I'm going to pull up the graph and we're going to take a look at that as well on the screen, so you can see that there was no like massive peak and massive drop. I don't think, I'm looking at the sensor and it doesn't look like that, but we'll look more on this sensor on the graph on the app. That is how you can manage to eat a really high carb, high fat meal if you can adjust for it doing this split. And I hope I've showed you that how that really works. 6.2, perfect. So let's have a look at this graph down around here now. You can see that, you know, I took it, it went down, it started to rise again around here, and then I took the second dose of another 8 units and it went down and it was perfect and there was no huge peak. If we look here, we'll see that it went up to like about 12, but like that's expected. So that this is here when I had a snack earlier, got the same peak. You'll always get some form of a peak. What you don't want is a massive peak up here like around 18, 21, and then you have to adjust for that later on. Or you don't want to, you know, take all of the units of insulin together, go low, and then all that fat to break down and go massively high. So I think this shows how good this ratio works if you add an extra percentage in for the fat and you do the split dose, and how you can control having such a high fat meal. Also, I will quickly show you my blood sugars from the next morning, so you can see that I was 5.4 then in the night, and then I was perfectly fine throughout the night. The hypo the next morning was at like 9 a.m, but that was after I had my breakfast. That was from that insulin, so that wasn't related to the pizza. But yeah, you can see that I had a really good night overall. No massive peak at all, stayed well within range, and it was perfect. Overall, when we compare part 1 with no fat bolus and part 2 with a fat bolus, it's very obvious to see that adjusting and adding a fat bolus really helps. You can see that I maintained a perfect blood sugar throughout the night, whereas in comparison in part 1 my blood sugar first went low and then it went crazy high up to 17.6 and stayed there. So I hope this video helped and provided you with some information as to how to work your insulin around high fat meals, and that it can be done. It just takes a lot more practice and carb counting and adjustments than usual. But I have been following this method for a while and it really helps, and I'm going to stick with it, and I would advise anyone who wants to try it to read some of the papers that I have in the description and maybe talk to your diabetes team or doctor before you start. Yeah, the comparison between part 1 and part 2 is crazy. I hope you liked my video. I'm hoping to do a lot more diabetes related videos around things like this: carb counting, insulin adjustments, sensor, CGM, blood sugars, etc. So please hit that subscribe button and like my video, and leave a comment down below of how you're finding your insulin regime if you're diabetic too. And thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you in the next video.